The new boy entered the schoolyard with the kind of silence that unsettles noisy places. His steps were steady, his face calm, but there was a storm of eyes fixed on him. Not because he was new, not because he was unfamiliar, but because he was different. His skin tone, his accent, the way he carried himself, all of it seemed to make him a target before he even opened his mouth. Whispers turned into chuckles, and chuckles into sneers. The bullies spotted their prey instantly. They did not see a person with dreams, fears, and a past. They only saw an outsider they could mock. His books were knocked from his hands. His name was twisted into insults. His very existence was treated like a joke to entertain others. What they could not see, beneath the quiet composure, was a strength forged through discipline. They had no idea that each scar hidden beneath his sleeves carried stories of perseverance. They did not know about the endless hours of training, the sweat, the pain, the silent victories over his own limits. He was not simply new, not simply different, he was extraordinary. The bullies thought they were in control of the story. They thought they were untouchable kings of the playground. But the new kid carried a secret that would flip the script in ways they could never imagine. What began as cruel laughter would soon turn into a lesson no one would forget. This is not just a story about fists or fights. It is about dignity, prejudice, resilience, and the quiet power that waits for the right moment to rise. The school stood in a suburban neighborhood where sameness was the unwritten rule. Rows of identical houses stretched down the streets, with carefully trimmed lawns and white picket fences presenting an image of harmony. Yet beneath the surface, there was an invisible hierarchy. Those who looked, spoke, and lived like the majority found acceptance easily. Those who did not were tolerated at best and excluded at worst. When the boy's family moved into this neighborhood, whispers began before introductions were even made. A black family, settling in a community where diversity was more slogan than reality. Neighbors exchanged tight smiles that never reached their eyes. Some parents warned their children subtly, suggesting that the newcomers might be different. The boy felt the tension before he even stepped inside the school building. On his first day, he carried the heavy weight of being watched. Every move seemed under scrutiny, every step followed by murmurs. His accent, though slight, drew stares. The texture of his hair became a topic of curiosity. Teachers offered polite welcomes, but beneath their words lingered hesitation. He was marked as the other from the start. The bullies were quick to capitalize. They were not simply mischievous kids seeking amusement, they were heirs to an environment that tolerated small cruelties. They mocked his darker skin under the sun, compared him to stereotypes they had absorbed from television, and laughed at the way he dressed. It was not the open brutality of fists at first. It was the quiet erosion of dignity, delivered through constant jabs, smirks, and humiliations the boy tried to endure. He remembered his parents' advice: keep your head high, ignore them, prove yourself through excellence. His mother reminded him of the sacrifices their family had made. His father urged him to focus on studies and remember the legacy of resilience that ran through his bloodline. He wanted to believe that patience would win respect, but cruelty fed on silence. Each time he ignored the insults, the bullies grew bolder. They tripped him in hallways, smeared his desk with crude words, and spread rumors to isolate him further. His classmates learned quickly that befriending him meant becoming a target too. Loneliness wrapped around him like a cloak, yet, when he returned home each day, he transformed. In the quiet of his room, the boy practiced. His martial arts training was not a hobby. It was his lifeline. His grandfather, a man who had endured racism in earlier decades, had introduced him to the discipline. Strength, his grandfather used to say, is not for hurting others. It is for knowing you cannot be broken. The boy trained every evening, striking the air with precision, repeating stances until his muscles burned. His body carried bruises, not from fights with peers, but from self-imposed endurance. Martial arts was not about violence for him. It was about control, resilience, and dignity. Still, he hid this part of himself at school. To the bullies, he appeared meek, quiet, easy prey. They never saw the warrior behind the silence. And that blindness fueled their arrogance. The weeks unfolded like a relentless storm. Each day brought a new form of humiliation. Sometimes it was subtle, a shove into lockers, a stolen lunch, a whispered slur. Other times it was more direct, a basketball snatched away, laughter erupting when he missed a shot, deliberate exclusion from group activities. The boy endured it all. Each insult pierced, but he refused to react outwardly. Inside, though, frustration simmered. His sense of identity was under siege. He was not just fighting classmates, he was wrestling with a system that taught them such cruelty. Teachers often dismissed incidents as boys being boys. Administrators avoided confrontation, fearing backlash from influential parents. His pain was minimized at every turn. Racism, he realized, was not just the bully's taunts. It was the silence of bystanders. It was the way authority figures brushed aside his complaints. It was the collective indifference that allowed cruelty to fester. One afternoon, during gym class, the humiliation reached a peak. Teams were being chosen for basketball. Predictably, he was picked last. When he finally held the ball, a bully deliberately tripped him. He fell hard, laughter exploding around the court. The coach glanced up but said nothing. The boy's cheeks burned, not from pain, but from the crushing weight of invisibility. That night, in his room, he trained harder than ever. Each kick carried the frustration of being unheard. Each punch released the sting of insults. Sweat soaked the floor, but his spirit grew sharper. He reminded himself, martial arts was not about revenge. It was about control. But control did not mean endless silence. The bullies sensed his quiet endurance as weakness, and like predators, they pressed further. They cornered him in hallways, ripped pages from his notebooks, mocked his heritage with exaggerated accents. They spread lies about his family, suggesting they did not belong. The cruelty became a performance, drawing laughter from peers who feared becoming victims themselves. Still, he endured. Not because he was incapable of defending himself, but because he knew timing mattered. His grandfather's words echoed, "The strongest strike is the one delivered at the right moment, not the fastest one, but patience has limits." And the breaking point arrived when the bullies escalated from insults to threats. One day after school, they surrounded him near the bike racks. Their leader shoved him, sneering that he should go back where he came from. The group laughed as they circled closer. The boy's hands tightened around his backpack straps. For a moment, fear threatened to overwhelm him. But then calm settled in, a calm born of training, of discipline, of knowing he was not helpless. The confrontation unfolded under a pale afternoon sky. The bullies jeered, their words dripping with venom. The leader lunged first, pushing him hard against the rack. But this time, the boy did not stumble. His stance shifted subtly, grounding him. When the next shove came, he moved with precision. A quick step aside, a controlled pivot, and the bully's own momentum sent him sprawling to the ground. Gasps erupted from the onlookers. The others hesitated, surprised by the sudden reversal. The leader scrambled up, rage twisting his face. He charged again, fists raised. The boy's movements were fluid, disciplined. He deflected the punch, redirected the force, and the bully crashed to the ground once more. This was not wild fighting, it was mastery. Every motion was efficient, deliberate, restrained. The crowd that had gathered grew silent. For the first time, the bullies looked uncertain. Their dominance cracked as they realized the boy was not the helpless victim they had imagined. Each attempt to strike him was met with calm precision. He did not retaliate with cruelty. He did not throw unnecessary blows. He only defended, controlled, disarmed. The leader's fury turned into desperation. He lunged recklessly, only to be disarmed and pinned effortlessly. The boy's eyes met his tormentor's, calm, steady, unbroken. No words were spoken, yet the message was clear. Strength was not about cruelty. Power did not come from humiliation. The bullies staggered back, their arrogance shattered. The crowd whispered in awe. The boy released his grip, standing tall, composed. He had not sought revenge. He had claimed dignity, and in the days that followed, the story spread through the school like wildfire. The boy who had been mocked, excluded, and dismissed was suddenly seen in a new light. Whispers turned into respect, and respect into admiration. Some students approached him cautiously, seeking friendship. Others, who had once laughed at his humiliation, now looked at him with shame. The bullies avoided him, their dominance broken. But the lesson extended beyond them. Teachers who had once turned blind eyes began to recognize the quiet injustices in their classrooms. Administrators, pressured by the murmurs of students and parents, could no longer dismiss what had been happening. The boy's stand, though wordless, forced an entire system to confront its silence, yet victory was not about popularity. The boy did not crave applause. What mattered was the reclaiming of his dignity. He had shown that resilience could outlast cruelty, that strength could be quiet yet undeniable. His training had taught him more than defense. It had taught him patience, discipline, and the power of restraint. At home, his family saw the change. His parents embraced him with pride, recognizing the courage it took not just to defend himself, but to endure until the right moment. His grandfather, with eyes shining, reminded him that his true victory was not in subduing bullies, but in proving that he could not be broken by a system built to diminish him. The schoolyard returned to its rhythm, but something had shifted. Conversations about racism, once avoided, began to surface. Students questioned the cruelty they had witnessed. Some apologized. Others reflected quietly. The boy had not just defended himself, he had sparked reflection in an entire community, and so the story ends not with fists raised in triumph, but with heads bowed in thought. It ends with the reminder that racism thrives in silence, but dignity thrives in resilience. The boy's greatest strike was not physical. It was the strike against prejudice, against indifference, against the idea that cruelty should be tolerated. So ask yourself, when cruelty mocks dignity, when silence enables injustice, where do you stand? Are you with the laughter of the crowd, or with the quiet strength that refuses to break?